My name is Ed Acevedo. I'm a professor at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia, in the United States. I have spent my career as a professor trying to understand how it is that we experience movement, physical activity, movement. I've been interested in trying to understand that experience so that we could help individuals participate in physical activity, enjoy physical activity, and persist or adhere or continue to do physical activity throughout their lifespan. My interest here in working with Dr. Hassan El-Sangadi is really because we share that interest. We share an interest in saying, how can we help people enjoy physical activity more? And what can we do to help them continue to do physical activity? Because the outcome, we all know, should be better health, improved health, and a higher quality of life. I think that is the question that each individual has. Tell me what to do. I want to be healthy. Tell me what to do. I'll do it. I'll be healthy, right? So the question is really relevant to each individual. And then I have to start my answering your question with, it's likely an individual answer for each individual. Right? So it's a little different for each individual. And when we talk about behavior change, now we're talking about the whole individual's lifestyle and all those things that have to be considered when we're trying to help that individual. However, well, why physical activity? How would that benefit? Well, physical activity, clearly you're expending calories and challenging the cardiovascular system, the heart, lungs to adapt. Those are really good things, right? And those are linked to many chronic health conditions and overall health. Physical activity links to the mental health benefits as well, and there's more and more evidence. So that's a nice link as well. I think there's no question that physical activity and changing your health behaviors can improve the quality of your life, the quality of your health, and how long you live. We know that. The research supports that and has supported that for many, many years. The challenge is trying to have humans continue to do those health behaviors and physical activity necessary to have those benefits. The notion that you're one human being, not just a mental person or an emotional person and a physical person, right? Not separate. That notion is critically important to understanding why it is that health behaviors, nutrition, physical activity, sleep, and other behaviors impact our mental health. Because you're one, right? You're not two different. So appreciating that starts the process of saying, okay, what can I do for my mental health that can affect me physically, and what can I do for my physical health that can affect me mentally? And that begins to bring this together. And there's been many, many studies showing in particular the beneficial effects of physical activity and depression. In addition, physical activity and your ability to cope with anxiety, many studies showing that if you're physically active, you seem to be able to cope with anxiety. We all have anxiety. We all have some depression, but we're better able to cope with it because our bodies are stronger, they're more resilient, and they allow us to kind of relax and in a sense move away from just the thoughts and mental aspects and relax and allow our bodies to kind of function more smoothly. And then our ability to cope with stress, very stressful events. The more physically fit you are, the more able the more ability you have to cope with those kind of stressful events that we all have in our lives again. But in terms of stress, we see it very clearly. With stress, you have stress hormones, these chemicals in the body that prepare the body to cope with the stress. The more physically fit individuals, they have less of a response. So in a sense, it's a more efficient response, more effective response. So there's physiological evidence now that supports this relationship between physical health and mental health. These cells that I'm interested in are the rate at which we put plaque, the heart on our arteries. There's plaque that goes on there, it gets clogged, and then blood and oxygen don't get to our heart, we have a heart attack. Our work, and some of the work that I think that we've made a bit of a difference, is to show that what I'm thinking has an effect on these cells that are producing these chemicals that can put plaque on our arteries. And if you're fitter, the more fit an individual is, the less likely that we activate these cells when we are experiencing mental stress. So simply, our perceptions of stress impact our heart disease, the rate at which we're developing heart disease. And if you're active, we can diminish that to some degree. When we look at chronic diseases and we try to track and understand how these diseases have developed, often we look at physical activity as playing a central role, or lack of physical activity playing a central role. And so once you have a chronic disease, it's more than logical to say, well, how about if we alter their physical activity? Can we see a benefit, right? Can we see improvement? And so that's how we begin to rationalize about, okay, yeah, and then there have been many studies to show that indeed physical activity can definitely allow the cardiovascular system to adapt so that it's more efficient and effective for heart disease. You can lose weight for obesity, and that's linked to hypertension as well, some improvements in hypertension, and diabetes. So those are some of the chronic diseases that we see, and that's how we see this relationship and the critical importance of physical activity in trying to alleviate some of the symptoms associated with these symptoms that are not functioning well. No question that I just described a very kind of physical relationship, right? There's this chronic condition, there's inactivity, so we're going to increase activity, we're going to hopefully alleviate or help this chronic condition, but indeed we ignored all the mental health aspects of that, right? Including the motivation to do physical activity, regulate your nutrition, manage your stress, sleep better. Those are big areas because physical activity impacts those as well. So again, it's that whole person that we're trying to address through physical activity, and in particular with individuals who are suffering from chronic disease. And this was research done by one of my graduate students who came to my office one day and wanted to do some research in particular on aging, getting older, and the impact of physical activity on aging and stress, how we handle stress. We knew, the literature had already shown, that the more physically active you are, the more you retain the length of your telomeres. So telomeres are these proteins in a cell that determine the functional age of the cell. So in most cells of the body, as they age, their functional ability becomes more narrow or limited, right? It just gets old. And so the ability for my hair to stay black leaves. Many changes in the body, right? And all of these cells are aging. And these telomeres tell us their age, they shrink. And as they shrink, it's telling us that the functioning of the cell is diminishing. Isn't that interesting? And that's linked to the aging process. Not the number of years, but how the cell is functioning. So we'd like to keep them long. Physical activity helps us keep it long. Smoking makes it short. So there's a lot of factors that we know now can dictate or regulate whether these cells stay long or shrink. They shrink as you get old, you can't stop it, right? But we can slow it down. Why won't humans behave in a way that they know is best for them? Yeah, so for me, the question that you're asking in our field, right, this is the question of a lifetime. It doesn't make any sense, right? To do physical activity, you might put shoes and some clothes on and then you move. Not too hard, right? And yet, very difficult for whatever reason for people to start, but more importantly, persist, continue on. The first step is a first step. It's not huge. I mean, so for me, I look at that and I compare it to changing my diet. For changing my diet, actually for me would be hard, I think. But movement seems a little simpler, right? I have to learn a lot about my nutrition to change my nutrition, to make sure I'm making good physical activity. You could walk. That would be a great start, right? And you could figure out the time of day that works best. And maybe you could, if you have a dog, you could walk your dog, or you could take your children to the park, or you could. So for me, those are a lot simpler than changing diet, even though changing diet would be very, very helpful as well. What's happening here, what I see and what I'm impressed with, is the energy of students coming in and working with older adults. That's really enlightening for me to see. It's this connection that we see between young people, energized and excited and wanting to learn and wanting to have an impact, and this population that is really open to learning more and really open to saying, I'd like to be healthier, right? I'd like to try a few things. You don't get that overlap, you don't get that opportunity so often in other environments. This setup, this organization, this structure really enhances that. I think when you take that energy and you take that kind of really intriguing connection that's developed here, and you add to that expertise from the university, where you have the experts that read about this information, that are knowledgeable about what's happening in research and developing new knowledge. That's another level of excitement and quality information that's being presented to these individuals, and they can benefit from those. So for me, it's kind of this really unique mix that comes together with students, with the population, older adults, and then the expertise that is infused into this interaction. And I think it can blossom, I think it is blossoming, and people can change their lives.